Hey there! In this video we're making a simple wire wrapped ring with an alphabet bead. It's got our cute little letter bead in the centre with the wire wrapped around to frame it and then attached on each side. For this design we use the round and flat alphabet beads. They're about 7mm wide and 3mm deep. Just choose what letter bead you want on your ring. I'm using E for my daughter's name. Then we need 12 inches of 20 gauge dead soft silver wire. First up we pop the bead onto the wire and we want it sitting about the middle. You can measure it if you like, but I find I can do it just by eye. Then we place our wire onto our ring mandrel or large pen, keeping that bead right in the centre of our wire and bringing both wires around all the way so that they come back and pass the bead again. I do tend to size up about a half a size on a ring mandrel, so mine's at about the 8 mark for about a 7.5 size ring. If you're using a pen, just use a whiteboard marker or something that's a little bit bigger than a finger. Now these beads have a tendency to want to spin around, so we want to try and work our wire ends under the top and bottom of the bead here, and that will help to keep it nice and flat. Just tucking each wire underneath the bead there. So you can give your wires a little tug too, just making sure your wires coming around the band are nice and tight and they're not overlapped anywhere. So once we've brought that wire underneath the bead, we can gently bring it downwards. Now we just come back and do the same thing with this other wire. So we're starting to bring these wires around the bead to frame it. So you're wanting the wire to be coming underneath the bead and then you can bring it upwards. So you can see how the bead is just trying to spin all the time. That's why it's really important that this wire sits underneath and holds that little letter in place. Once the wire's under the bead, you can gently bring this wire on the left upwards. And then we're going to work both of our wires around the bead slowly. So I'm just bringing this wire on the right around and this left wire around as well. Just a couple of loops so that you get a nice little frame around your bead. You can see my little beads popped up as I'm doing this. That's okay, I can fix that after. Just bringing those wires around until you're happy with the framing, and then you want to finish it with one wire on each side. Just making sure you leave at least an inch on each side so that you've got enough to wrap it around the band. Now I'm just going to pop this bead back into its right position. We're just spinning and pushing it so that it sits nice and flat. And then we can work with our little wires that were underneath the bead. Again, just bringing them under and pulling them together a little bit with your pliers here. Pulling them together so that they sit closer and just hold that bead nice and flat. Once you're happy with your bead sitting flat and these wires that you've brought around to frame the bead, we're going to secure our ring by wrapping each tail around the band, just on the sides of the bead here. Just making sure that wire tail comes over across the band, and then we're just going to gently, with our pliers, work it from the end, gently bending it inwards and inside the ring, so that we can wrap it around the two band wires on the side here. Working our wire around so that we've got nice tight, tidy loops. Not so much pulling on the wire, more just working it around the band. It's a little bit fiddly wrapping these wires around, but just bring it around a couple of loops. Making sure those wires on the band sit next to each other and stay nice and flat. I normally try for 3 loops around, but 2 is okay as well, just depends on how much of a wire tail you've got. You can use your pliers as well to keep those loops nice and tight and close together, and crimp them down nice and flat as well. Once you're happy with them, you can lift that tail up on the inside of your ring and cut it off nice and short, crimping it down nice and tight so there's no sharp edges. Then we can swap onto the opposite side, and we're going to do the same thing again. So with this tail coming over the top of the band, we just start by bending it around and inside the ring so that we can work it around these wires on the band. On our second side, we're working to try and make it match with the first side as well. So if you did 3 loops on the first side, you want to do 3 loops on this side as well. Working your wire gently, also trying to keep those wires on the band sitting next to each other and nice and flat. Once you've done your 3 full loops around and you're happy with them, then you can bend that wire up inside your ring, cut it short and crimp it down nice and tight. You can take some time with your pliers now, just going over your whole design, making sure your loops on the side are nice and close together and tight, checking that the wires on your band are nice and flat and no overlaps there, and also that your bead is sitting in the right position. You can go ahead and check the size of your ring now. Mine's ended up about a 7.5 after starting on the 8 mark. So there's your simple wire wrapped ring with an initial or alphabet bead.